Governor, and thanks to all the witnesses for your specific testimony and for coming such a distance. We'll now move to a 5-minute round of questions. Senator Murray characterized the Republican position on the Affordable Care Act. Let me characterize it the way I think about it. Our goal is to repair the damage caused by Obamacare where we find damage. We want to do that by moving decisions. Our goal in that sense is to give Americans more choices of insurance at a lower cost. Our method of doing that would be gradually to move decisions out of Washington and back in the hands of consumers, hands of states. That's what we intend to do. I think of what the work we have and the way the chart is on behind me. You see Medicare at the top. We're not talking about Medicare, put it aside. We're talking about employer insurance, where most people get their insurance. That's not in crisis right now. We're talking about Medicaid. That's a discussion to have with governors. But today we're talking about the individual market, which is in trouble, And it's 4% of the people who are insured buy on the exchanges and 6% total buy on the individual market. The 4% affects the 6%. So the question is it in trouble? What should we do, and how soon should we do it? My first question of you, Ms. McPeak, you're the president-elect of the State Insurance Commissioners. Is it possible to work just on the individual market if we were to come to some agreement here about the individual market for the next 2 or 3 years, Republicans doing some things we wouldn't normally do, Democrats doing some things they wouldn't normally do, and stabilize it as you've suggested? Could we do that and leave for a separate discussion what we do about Medicaid and what we do about the employer market?
Absolutely. I think that you can address the individual market separately from the other categories of care, and that's where the real need is, and the timing is critical. As mentioned by one of my colleagues, right now plans are calculating whether they want to participate for 2018 because under current...
Well, let me get to that, and let me ask you and Ms. Tavenner that as well. When do we have to, if you accept the fact that the individual market's in trouble, when do we have to act so there will be insurance available in the states in 2018, and in how many states is there trouble?
Well, for individual state filings, policy forms are due by companies in May for 2018, rates by mid-July, for approval by August by the individual states with rate review authority under current HHS
But when do we have to act?
I think that you need to provide some indication to plans as quickly as possible, but March would be, I think, extremely helpful.
Ms. Tavenner, what would you say?
I would say the same thing. Right now, plans are trying to price for 18, and the uncertainty around cost-sharing subsidies and the tax credits would cause them to hesitate to price, because we need to understand what the funding support is going to be, because that affects premiums.
Ms. Trautwein,
I would say the same thing. I think the latest would be the end of March, because with carriers having these filing requirements, that's just when that's after they've already made their decision. The decisions are made much earlier than the actual filing deadlines.
Now, to get it clear what this would mean, in how many states, if we don't act, is it likely or possible that there would be no insurance to buy? In 2/3 of the counties in Tennessee, there's only one insurer. And how many counties might there be no insurer? And you might have a bus ticket without a bus running through town. Ms. McPeak?
I can only speak to Tennessee's experience, but we have significant concern that we may have some uncovered areas in 2018, and that number might be significant.
Ms. Tavenner?
I think without the cost-sharing subsidy and tax credit confidence, we would lose counties and markets across the country.
Okay, well, let me stick on that in my remaining minute. You've suggested two things that Republicans might not want to do, which is to continue cost sharing for 2 or 3 years, or reinsurance for 2 or 3 years in order to stabilize the market. How essential is cost sharing and reinsurance, at least temporarily, in order to avert a serious emergency in the individual market for between 11 million and 20 million Americans?
I think they're critical. They are required. And I think what happens.
In other words, you mean insurance companies would pull out of those states if they didn't have either of those things?
I think we would lose more insurance companies. We've already lost significant in 17, and I think we would lose more in 18. And those who would stay in would have to price over those hurdles, which means we would face probably somewhere in the 20% or greater premium increase on top of medical cost trend and everything else. So it's important.
Thank you, Ms. Tavenner. My time's up. Senator Murray.